Welcome back to Plug and Play EV. I'm Steve, and in this video I'll be explaining why I'm in this and no longer in the Hyundai IONIQ 5. So this, as many of you will know, is the Polestar 2. They did have the Polestar 1, which is a kind of performance high-end hybrid, this being the first all-electric and delivered several years ago. First time I was in one of these was down in New York City when the Polestar Space opened down there. Good feelings of it at the time, like the fact that it was a hatchback, but the sedan shape kind of otherwise ruled it out for us as a family, needing the bigger hatch opening, slightly higher riding position, all that good stuff. But this is a rental from Hertz in Boston. One of the benefits of being in Boston is that you're near to the pool of electric fleet vehicles that Hertz invested in a few years ago, being Tesla Model 3, Polestar 2 primarily, then some Bolt EVs and a bunch of others that came on a bit later. But this was easy enough to get, plenty of them at the airport. Let's jump inside to talk about why we're in this and what's happening with our Hyundai IONIQ 5 back from 2022 model year. So I've obviously had a bit of a gap in videos here, not all related to this really, just a very busy time in general with family visiting, a lot of different wheels in motion, so apologies for the lack of non-coast-to-coast EVs videos, but I thought this would be a good one to jump back into the fray, get on the treadmill of content again and start to talk about where we're at with the vehicle and what's happening with our Hyundai IONIQ 5. So as a lot of regular viewers know, it's a 2022 model year, first model year. They always say don't buy the first model year. Well, that would actually apply to the 2023 and 2024 of the IONIQ 5 as well. But essentially our vehicle came down with the ICCU recall. Tough end of that recall, not just the software updates, which it had previously. ICCU is the integrated charging control unit, essentially manages the flow of power between the 12-volt charging systems, a bunch of pieces of the car that are crucial to keeping it in operation and powered up. So there's been various progressions of this. Hyundai has done a couple of software recalls free of charge, getting it into the dealership, having them do updates that give you a better idea when this is going to fail, and I would imagine improving the experience, able to slow down more gradually, get off the interstate if that's where you are, and find a way to get the car to a dealership. In 84,000 miles before that, we hadn't had any issues with it, been all over the country as folks know, and actually did a big trip in the Midwest. My wife and her family did that just before this happened in January. So about mid-February we got to a much more local trip down in Connecticut when she was down there, and the fuse blew on the ICCU, as it's designed to do, slowed the car down to basically 20-mile-an-hour speed. It's local driving only, and that was that. You need to get it fixed at that point. It has to go into a Hyundai dealership to get the ICCU replaced. Pain in the bum in general, of course. Anything that puts the car out of commission for any amount of time is frustrating and means you need the dealership visit, so that's one of those annoyance things, but I did know this was a potential piece. It's at the moment they estimate has impacted around 10% of the Hyundai IONIQ 5 population that's out there over the 3 and almost 4 model years now. Car has been mostly trouble-free. We had to replace the 12-volt. That's been something that meant we had to address it around 40,000 miles mark. Other than that, really, all the maintenance has been, stuff that they've just updated in the car, like adding the battery heating, doing some of the updates and common stuff like tire rotation. So in general, we're not too worried over 80,000+ miles that something hits, but it has hit other people earlier, 15,000, 20,000 miles, where you're not really expecting problems with the car that early on. So it's not really something that I can say is, high mileage use. It's happened to other people at much lower mileage than us. So that's something that Hyundai has to address. The issue at the moment with the IONIQ 5 ICCU recall is that the part is on back order, the crucial piece that you need to get in there and do what is a decent amount of work, replacing the unit, flushing the low conductivity coolant system, a bunch of pieces. That's enough in itself in terms of work, but then you have the added piece of the part has been on back order. Essentially, I'll go through a little bit of the timeline here, how Hyundai has kind of held our hand to get to where we are, in the Polestar 2 here included, and just go through a bit of that, what I like and dislike about the Polestar 2, and that'll be the update for this time. So the car had done its time, it's done its miles, and we weren't really thinking of the ICCU other than it's happening to other people. But it did hit us down in Connecticut, again, quite local, and there's actually a good dealership down there called Hyundai, who was happily to be recommended by the IONIQ guy, Corbin. So thank you to him for that. So not too bad. It's only about 80, 90 miles away from Boston here. Not inaccessible, and I thought that was the best way to go because I've been less content with some of the dealerships in our area than perhaps he has with them down there in Connecticut. This hit around mid-February. So after that, obviously, we're starting to look at how long is it going to be? You know, if it's only out for a few days, a week, you can bridge that gap. But when you start to get into multiple weeks and now coming up on months, that starts to become an issue, obviously, and something that people with the car who own it, who haven't had this happen yet, are going to start worrying about potentially. So from that February date, moved through to checking in with Hyundai, logging the case, letting them know that this was an issue and that the part being on back order meant that we were probably going to be without the car for an extended amount of time. I've heard from friends up in Maine that this could be a month or so. Other people have been saying on the forums 2-3 months plus. So obviously we're somewhere in the middle of that now. We're hopefully not going to be on the 2-3 months end of that, but we'll have to see. So I got towed to Key Hyundai in Connecticut, and they confirmed after initial inspection it was the ICCU. That led me to be able to open a case with Hyundai, who have a case manager is assigned to you. You get your case number, and then that is something they follow up on a weekly basis. So I won't get into all the details of the rental, but essentially they said, you know, based on the fact that the part was on back order and the car wasn't going to be available for us, and it is our only vehicle at the moment. We don't have a second EV or a second any other kind of vehicle to back it up. They got the rental to us, and I've heard that others have had the same done. Thankfully, because we're in Boston, as I mentioned, it's close to an electric hub for Hertz and the rental company. The stipulation from Hyundai was that you have to go with a national rental agency, so you're talking Hertz, Avis, Budget, Alamo. I assume any one that is at a major airport will be fine. We'll probably do a separate video on the rental experience, but it's relatively good. It came charged 90%. They had Kia Niro EVs, Polestar 2s. I saw some Teslas in the lot. Polestar 2 kind of bridged the gap between you know, something interesting to cover for the channel, but also having the hatch and enough kind of space to get our stuff in. This is the very low end. It's a 2023 rear-wheel drive, you know, basic entry model as you'd expect with kind of rental fleet vehicle. But I've enjoyed it, to be honest. The few weeks that we've had it, it's the operating system's been good. All of the things that I kind of liked initially still there, although it doesn't have the power that the test drive I had displayed, because that was an all-wheel drive version. But have had to extend the rental because the weekly check-ins with Hyundai, which they've been very good about, Case Manager has been good in terms of keeping us updated. Unfortunately, it hasn't been good news. They've got parts that are starting to move, but still, you know, no news on when that will get to our dealership and how long that process will take. We'll probably move closer to 2 months by the sound of, you know, getting the parts in, the work scheduled, work done, and getting the car back. And I'll just kind of keep on updating probably by the time folks are watching this, and if it does expand, as I expect it will, into more and more of those early model year IONIQ 5s, you'll start to see that the parts are on hand. It becomes much more of a routine kind of piece to get the car in a couple of days and replace it through. Just is annoying, you know, if this is a vehicle that you've been considering, it's selling very well. It's one of those that has been kind of the poster child for the latest EV tech in what is an affordable package at that $40,000 to $50,000 price point. It's something that now has to kind of weigh on the car a little bit and the ownership experience. So hopefully Hyundai moves quickly past this, and into Q2 they can start to really ramp up the replacement process. And whilst we're at it, we may as well have a quick look around the Polestar 2. Again, it's a 2023 75 kilowatt hour, I believe. That's on the outside, so I can show that overlaid here. Vehicle I like the look of, actually. It seems plain to some people, but there's not so many of them on the road that it doesn't stand out a little bit, even here in EV-friendly and well-adopted electric vehicles in Massachusetts. You can see that there's a large divide here. This is one of the things that's always kind of bugged me about this vehicle. It's just, I mean, some people love it because it's the driver-focused element of a cockpit, but this is high. There's even as far reclined back as I can go, and whatever else, that this doesn't get in the way as a a blockage for my legs, and you know, for some people that may not be an issue if you're coming from certain gas vehicles or even some EVs that are more driver focused. This won't be a problem, but for me, we've gone from the big open space here of the IONIQ 5 and being able to move this entire central console back and forward to fit our needs, to having much less leg space and being a little bit constrained, to be honest, especially with the roof here. You only get in this base version this trim and darkened as well, so it's quite, unless you've got a bright day like this, it's quite dark in here and feels a little bit sullen. But obviously driver focus, so you have a nice feel to it. If you're getting the performance edition or one of the higher, more capable levels of trim, I think actually it might be a benefit, because as a driver's EV, it's going to feel good. You're going to have more responsiveness. You're going to have the power that you want, and it does kind of give you that planted to the road, really well built kind of Scandinavian feel. The biggest piece for me that I like is the operating system. Probably prefer landscape for the tablet, but whatever, that's if you have a large tablet in the center here, you're dealing with a lot of screen real estate, and there's just so much going on here that you can start to get into. I really like it. It's responsive still. It's been in use. This is 27,000 miles, something like that, and obviously been hammered by rental drivers, so it's got some dings here and there, but essentially the snappiness and responsiveness is still there. Google Maps is a really good integration, has YouTube, has your messaging. This is just in guest mode, so once you plug it into your actual Google account and all the things that people have lined up there, familiar destinations, music, routines, all that good stuff, I've been told it's an even better system, so I'm only scratching the surface of how good this can be. One pedal driving, that is a bugbear, not having the paddles here to change it on the go whilst you're getting onto the interstate. Biggest thing is local driving. I like kind of one pedal to be either the heaviest it can be or kind of close to that, come to a full stop, regenerative braking on much higher, that kind of thing, and creep off. Obviously not a fan of it moving forward, want it to come to a complete stop and stay there. On the highway, getting onto the interstate, I'll dial that back a bit, so it may be, you know, low or even just off, but you have to do that, as far as I know, unless there's a kind of quick hack that I've missed. You have to go into this, so you may be probably using maps to navigate, and then once you're on the interstate, you're going to have to go 1, 2 pushes, and then it may not be, there's not that much variability here. So if I've got it on standard, I'm going to probably have to go to low, maybe to off, then back up, another press, another press. I'm sure there's quicker ways to do this, but again, it's easier to just, whilst you're doing it on the fly through paddles, use that, than if you're trying to do this through screens and take your eyes away from the road, especially if you're talking about getting onto the interstate. It can be busy around Boston. There's lots of these junctions where you have to just get up and go. I guess if you're in the line to get on, you could change it before you jump on, but that's something I preferred in the IONIQ 5, having the paddles to move it back. Driver assist, hadn't had much time to play with yet. Charging, obviously I'm low, but it has all the regular kind of charging you'd want. It's 400 volt system, unlike the IONIQ 5, so charging is going to be slower, but it does ramp up the amperage. You're still getting, I'm going to have to test it, do more on that, but the 150 kilowatt kind of area is pretty accessible. So, car cameras, good visibility, nice and crisp. The you don't get as much as the IONIQ 5. There's usually get the bird's eye view would be here, and you can see the rear view cameras as well. So you have to kind of pick between those, which is a little bit jarring. I love the fact that Google Maps is in the driver cluster as well. Really nice. Like if I could have anything, that would be one of the big features in the IONIQ 5. I do miss the, we have the safety package that has the turn signals cameras. So you'll show when you're signaling left or right. So you'll get a view out of that side of the camera. Really like that. That helps a lot. But you know, it's just in your everyday driving, you can get used to it not being the case. See 27,999 there. So we're almost at 28,000 in this. Probably done around 1,000 miles in it now, I would say. We've done a couple of trips and been around locally. We do a decent amount of driving for kids' activities, so that's been up and down. It's all kind of baked into the Google system. Hasn't been 100% accurate. I went up to check out the Littleton supercharger when that was on fire. It didn't actually take very long to fix that. Yeah, there we go. So again, it has the details in, but it still showed this as available when it was out of commission on Tuesday due to the fires. They got that back up really quickly, so it is actually back up now. But again, that's something that the data flow is nice to have, but it's not always necessarily going to be accurate. So you don't get the same level as you would in a Tesla, where they know exactly what's going on down to the port and which ones are out. In terms of space, I mean, the same difference really. It's we just notice a lot more situations where the kids have to kind of move the seat back, or it's been forward because there's people in the back, and then they have to move it further back to get their stuff in. Moving in with big bags, school pickups, all that kind of stuff is more effort than it is in the IONIQ 5 for sure. Visibility isn't as good, not as bright a cabin, but again, we're in the low-end model and trim here versus we're in the top-end trim of the IONIQ 5 from 2022, so not really a fair comparison in that sense. But in general, I enjoy it as the individual driver. I think for a family, it's more restrictive, and we will look forward to getting our IONIQ 5 back. From that perspective, we'll try and do a shorter road trip in this. Don't have a whole lot of time to go and do them, but maybe around Massachusetts or New England a little bit to get a feel for the charging and a better idea for how this holds up on a individual road trip. So that's your whistle-stop tour of the rental Polestar 2 and why we're in it. Have you experienced the ICCU recall in the worst end as we have now, or are you still kind of in that middle ground of having done the updates and just hoping that it doesn't happen to you? If you're in a Polestar 2, let us know what I should take a look at. This is kind of a little bit of an ad hoc jump into one of these, so as I say, I like it from the driver's perspective. I'm interested to take it on a road trip, but there's probably a lot of stuff that I haven't really covered in this, not intended as any kind of review, just impressions jumping back into the car, you know, as a more regular driver of it. Is there anything I'm missing here? Is there something that we should really dig into whilst we have the car? Let us know down in the comments. Looking forward to getting back on track here, bringing you more from this car, the ICCU and the Hyundai IONIQ 5, and a bunch of other things that I've had on the back burner in February. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Cheers.